Okay. Hello, my name is Faith from the Activation Project. I'm here today to interview Claire Warner, is it now? Who is the club, schools, and league manager for Table Tennis England. She has recently gone through our coaching through our service called Leaderline, and this service is sponsored by Sports England. So thank you very much for joining us today. You very kindly agreed to talk to us about your Leaderline coaching experience, and we want to explore with you what impact this coaching journey has had on your leadership role within your own sector. So the first question would be is, I understand that you never had coaching before this, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I hadn't, no.
Okay. So what understanding or expectations did you have of Leaderline before your first call?
To be honest, I had very little understanding, and I didn't really know what to expect. It was an opportunity that was sent my way by my line manager, and when I read it, I thought, yeah, that's something that I'd like to be involved in, and it sounded like something that would be of interest. But yeah, in terms of structure and content, I didn't really know what I was getting myself in for. I did anticipate that it is something that would require me to push myself, that I would have to get outside my comfort zone. So yeah, I was prepared for the challenge, but wasn't entirely sure what to expect from the program.
All right. So yeah, so before your first call, you received an invite for a welcome call. And did the welcome call that you then received help clarify what to expect from Leaderline?
Yeah, definitely. The welcome call was really helpful. Yeah, it was, like you say, an opportunity to understand more about the program, how it's structured, what to expect, and also, I guess, what's expected of me as well. And I think that was the session where I introduced myself a bit, my role, my hobbies, my interests, probably a lot of my whole life story. But we started to think about what my challenge might be as well in that initial welcome call.
Okay. Um, and what is it that your coach did or said to help you feel comfortable while talking about yourself and talking about your challenges?
My coach, Simon, was extremely friendly and extremely professional, and he certainly worked hard to help me relax into the process and to trust it. Um, he listened. I felt like he listened to what I had to say, even though I didn't go into it like with a clear challenge that I wanted to take on. He reassured me that that was fine. Asked loads of questions, which really helped me to structure where I wanted to go with the sessions.
Mhm. And how did it feel sharing your challenges, not knowing what your main challenge was going to be?
At first I did think I might just not be being very helpful, but as I said, like, Simon was really reassuring, and so that feeling really quickly went away. I had plenty to say, and I had lots of areas where I knew I could be more effective, but I just hadn't really grouped or themed them in any kind of way before. So I think that's probably where this process was really helpful, because just taking the time to talk it out alongside answering Simon's questions helped it become much clearer in my mind what I wanted to focus on.
And what was it like, building on that, what was it like sharing your challenges openly for the first time with someone you never even met before?
I think I knew from the start that this is the kind of thing that the more you put in, the more you get out of it. Um, so I mentioned already that I knew that this would be a challenge and it's something that would put me out of my comfort zone. So I probably just took some reassurance in it being exactly like that, and it was as I expected. Um, but Simon's attitude and nature definitely helped me to be completely honest and open with it. And there were times where I'd say something and then I'd say, oh, actually, that's probably not exactly what I mean, or that's not exactly what I meant. And I'd question myself at the same time. And that definitely was to do with sort of the welcoming, the supportive environment that's created within the sessions.
Okay, so would you say that so overall the first how do I say, the first coaching call kind of set the tone for the whole journey, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. I think I went into the first session quite nervous and a little bit apprehensive. And that was the only session I went into feeling like that. Yeah, it was a really friendly process all the way through.
And then during your coaching session, so we have our coaching tools, and you were introduced to one of our coaching tools called Comfort, Panic, and Stretch. Can you tell us a bit more about this coaching tool and how you used it, and yeah, how you just used it throughout your entire journey, basically? Yeah.
Yeah. So this was a tool that I found particularly useful in the main because it helped me to communicate effectively with Simon and also with myself about how certain scenarios and situations made me feel. And it was a really good reference point for having that conversation. Um, so like the comfort zone is, as you'd expect, is where you're super relaxed and yeah, not requiring too much thought. And then panic is at the other end of that, where you're super stressed and not really sure where to start. And in the middle of it is the stretch, which is where you're challenged, you're learning, but you feel invigorated by whatever it is you're doing. And that's where throughout these sessions I was encouraged to try and put myself in that stretch so that I could learn and develop effectively. Um, but a significant part of my coaching journey involved me reflecting almost daily at the start and writing down my thoughts about my day and how certain things had gone. And that was initially about helping me to identify the scenarios that made me feel in stretch, but also
Mm.
considering where that potentially started to put me towards panic. Um, Panic's an interesting word because I'm a fairly calm person. So I wasn't entirely sure what panic would look like for me. I knew I wasn't looking for sort of shouting and getting angry or anything like that.
Mm.
But making that effort to really consider how scenarios made me feel and behave, what I did find was that panic for me sounds very quiet, but feels quite frustrated. And I think once you're aware of what starts to trigger that, you can then start to look at why and whether there's something you need to learn or whether you just need to look at things in a different way, perhaps. But yeah, it was a tool and a thing that I found really helpful. And it's something that I continue to think about regularly now, like following on from the sessions, and something I've spoken about with others as well.
Mm. So I guess it's more about something that is going out in the inside, really, when you think of panic. Like it's not always loud, like you said, screaming. It's something from the inside. Sometimes it can be a feeling that just can stress you or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you said you were reflecting a lot. So while you were reflecting on your challenges and your overall role, did you identify any unhelpful patterns, for example, in your own behaviors as a leader?
I think I learned where I was holding myself back sometimes. Um, there were a couple of reasons for that, and sometimes it was because I didn't feel like I had a mechanism or a way of dealing with a scenario, and sometimes it was simply a matter of perspective. And the coaching sessions really helped me to identify sort of both of those kind of things. Um, there's a couple of examples. Like the first one, I didn't particularly feel confident gathering ideas from a group, so it was something that I'd avoid. Um, but I gather that sort of feedback and those ideas on an individual basis, which is fine. But it takes a lot longer to do it that way. And also, what it does prevent is the group from being able to bounce off of each other's ideas, which potentially results in a better outcome.
Mhm.
So that was one thing I identified. And then, perhaps a little bit deeper than that, I guess, the process did help me consider some of my core principles as well. So one of the things that I've always valued is wanting to be the best I can be, but I'd never really appreciated the pressure that can be associated with that kind of statement. So, for example, your best piece of, and it sounds obvious when you say it out loud, but your best piece of prepared written work looks very different to your best piece of, when you're asked something unexpectedly, even if it might be about the same topic. So, yeah, what I learned throughout this session for me was that a preferable principle and something to hold on to was to strive for continual improvement. And to be honest, that's something that feels like a massive weight lifted for me.
Mm. And as a result of that, what changes did you make in the way, what changes in how you lead did you make as a result of your coaching journey that stood specifically out to yourself?
I made quite a few changes, but there was one thing that I did that particularly helped me, and that was starting to consider my role on a much more situational basis. So
Mm.
ahead of sort of like going into meetings or whatever it was, starting a piece of work, I'd start thinking, okay, like what's my role here? Is my role to contribute? Is it to lead this session? Is it to facilitate? Is it to listen to the people around me and gather those thoughts and ideas from them? So that was something that I started to do. And for the roles that, if there was roles I found particularly challenging, I'd then take them into my coaching session, and I'd say, okay, I think this is causing me a bit of a challenge. And then Simon, my coach, would offer some ideas around that. So I said already that one of the things I found quite challenging was creating ideas within a group setting. And that was because I didn't really feel like I had a process. Whereas coming out of this, I've now got some techniques and some tactics of going into a session like that means that I can run it in an effective way.
And did the tactics you learned during your coaching session improve your overall confidence as a leader in general?
Yeah, without a doubt. There were some tactics and some techniques that didn't work for me. I gave them a go, and they weren't right for me. But there's others that I now use almost on a daily basis, things that help me to articulate my ideas, to gather feedback, like I've spoken about, and generally, just to work more effectively.
Okay. And did anyone else notice the changes that you made because of your coaching experience?
Yes, my line manager did comment on a positive change during one of our one-to-ones that took place throughout these sessions.
Okay. And overall, what would you say you have taken away from your coaching experience that will live on in the future and keep you growing as a successful leader?
I think the main thing is taking the time to reflect, especially when you're trying to work through something. Throughout the journey, there were some really specific things that I learned that helped me progress on the challenges of now. But the practice of reflecting, I think, will help me work through scenarios and situations long into the future, and I can do that sort of by myself.
So you feel that confidence to do it by yourself now as well, like you can take it on.
Yeah, and it's like it helps you to identify what not only what the challenges are, but what the triggers are for making it a challenge. And like I said, like whether it's something you perhaps need to learn about, or whether it's something that you just need to consider under a different light.
Mm. Then my last question would be, would you recommend LeaderLine to any leader in the sports and activity sector who needs help or support with a leadership challenge?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I would recommend this, the LeaderLine, to anyone with a leadership role who is
Okay.
keen to better or to develop themselves professionally. Like, even if, like me, you're not entirely sure what that particular challenge might be, it's a very difficult thing to try and put into words and articulate how much of a positive impact this has had on my role.
Okay. Stop the recording now.